Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachahakodash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. And as always, we give peace and salutations unto the elect. And in today's lesson, we're going to discuss Yahweh Shai being numbered amongst the transgressors. All right, as we know, we are walking down the path of the straight gate. All right, and as the scriptures say, the servant is no greater than his master. As a matter of fact, let's start off there. All right. I believe that's in the book of Matthew. It's in the Gospels, but this is the book of Matthew 24 and 25. The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master and the servant as his Lord. If they have called the master of the house of Baal-Zebub, all right, the house of the flies, or the Lord of the flies, so like the Lord of the flies, that's what they referred to Yahweh Shai as, basically, as he was doing miracles, the wicked scribes and Pharisees and leaders said basically, he was doing those miracles in the name of Beelzebub. It says, how much more shall they call them of his household? All right, so pretty much the disciple, the servant, is not above his master, meaning we're going to have to go through the same things that he went through. Now, one of the things that Yahweh Shai had to endure, all right, and we know that the book of Isaiah, the 53rd chapter, is a prophecy of Yahweh Shai, okay, but we're just going to get to the point. But as you can see here, he's despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, all right, and it says, and we hid, as it were, our faces from him. Israel didn't like to see Yahweh Shai coming. Okay, just like when we do videos rebuking and coming up against the false prophets, they hate to see us come. We're a thorn in their side. Well, Yahweh Shai went through that. Okay, it says he was despised and we esteemed him not. Okay, and as you can see here, when you read it in the NLT, it says he was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. When you go into the word grief, ailments, mental vexation, anxiety, sometimes that's why sometimes Yahweh Shai had to get away. Okay, sometimes men of the Lord need to get away and be alone. You got brothers with wives, and the wife is worried about him. Where you going? Which you shouldn't be doing that to your man, but it's just an example. But a lot of times men of the Lord just want to be alone, man. Okay, go and sit in front of some water. Okay, get away from it all, man. But Yahweh Shai did that. Sometimes he would get away from even his own disciples. It says, acquainted with the deepest grief, we turned our backs on him and looked the other way. He was despised and we did not care. This is how the nation of Israel pretty much treated Yahweh Shai. They didn't care. They saw him catching hell. Jake doesn't care, right? Now, just to get to the point, all right, because of ultimately what he did, he's going to get a reward. But let's look at one of the things that he had to endure. Isaiah 53 and 12, it says, therefore, I will divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong. And he's going to share his blessing of the entire planet Earth, the heathen, which are his inheritance. He's going to share it with his men, his people. Okay, just like Solomon did. Yahweh Shai is going to do it on an even greater, all right, level. It says, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors. See that? He was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many. He made intercession for the transgressors. So as you read here in verse 12, it says, I will give him honors of a victorious soldier, because he exposed himself to death. He was counted among the rebels. All right, now as we see clearly within Israel, You have particular men who are controlled opposition. You have particular men who are just simple. All right, but there's going to be people, even you may have certain members of GMS, all right, who are sleeper agents waiting for the right opportunity to do wickedness, to do evil, to do something, to have the ministry blamed. You have Israelites now, you know, they're at camps with guns. You have Israelites now, they're joining hand in hand with Islam. You have Israelites now, you know, on camera doing things that are not conducive to salvation. All right, and we are going to be numbered amongst them. Okay, so to get that, let's go to the book of Mark, the 15th chapter, and when you get verse 7, it talks about this guy Barabbas. Now, this is Mark 15 and 7. It says, and there was one named Barabbas, which lay bound with them, that had made insurrection. Now, what is the word insurrection? Right? Meaning you're stirring up many, all right, to rebel. It says stasis, it's the Greek word, is standing, station, and insurrection, strife. All right, insurrection, let's see if we can get a definition here. A violent uprising against an authority or government. See that? And that's what we know the Zealots did back then. Sakari, which were an off branch of the Zealots, this is what they were doing. This is why the wicked scribes and Pharisees would go up to Yahushua to try to find fault in him and tripping up in his words when they would ask him about, you know, should we pay our taxes? All right. And Yahushua was like, look, pay your taxes, man. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. What they were trying to do is have Yahushua say something like, no, we don't have to pay our taxes. We Jews. This is our land. Well, we pay taxes in our own land, so that they can pin on him that pretty much he was one of the movers of sedition, and he was calling people of his nation to rise up against the Roman authority, which was big then. This is also why in the book of Romans, the 13th chapter, the church of Yahushua, okay, Paul, okay, is telling you to be in subject to the authorities, okay? But in verse 6, Romans 13 and 6, it says, pay your taxes too for these same reasons. For government workers need to be paid. They are serving God in what they do. So these empires that are raised up, at that time it was the Roman Empire, are doing the will of the Lord. All right, they're fulfilling prophecy. So things have to function. You have to function as a servant, as a slave. You're under a curse. You're under a punishment. So, you know, you have particular Jews who were actually raising up sedition, who are actually fighting against the Romans. All right. But as you can see here in the NLT, Mark 15 and 7, one of the prisoners at that time was Barabbas, a revolutionary who had committed murder in an uprising. Okay? In Yahushua, we know, all right, when you go into it, when you go Matthew the 27th chapter, Yahushua was numbered right amongst him. Now we know Yahushua never, all right, called for any of his followers to go and fight against Rome. Yahushua spoke against that. Okay? Yahushua said, ultimately, agree with thine adversary. Yahushua's message was not to fight and take down the Roman Empire. But as you can see, all right, Yahushua was numbered right amongst him. A real evildoer. Right? And when you go into this guy, Barabbas, all right, this is who Jake wanted to be released. This is who Jake chose. But the bottom line is that Yahushua was numbered amongst him. A guy who was literally doing things that weren't commanded. Okay, and when you go into it, okay, it breaks it down. It says, this tells us, Mark 15 and 7, it says that Barabbas was involved in some kind of violent rebellion, likely a political insurrection against Roman authority. Was he a zealot or a member of Sakari? It says a movement of the zealots were a political movement of the Jews that sought to overthrow Roman rule in Judea, sometimes through violent means. They were active, all right, particularly during the first Roman Jewish War. The Sakari, a more radical offshoot of the Zealots, known for assassinating Roman officials and Jewish collaborators, meaning sellouts. All right, the Sicarii will go and put the sword to sell out people who they deem to be sellouts. All right, with small daggers called the Sikhe in crowded places. So they would go amongst crowded places. So they were actually doing this, right? They were actually doing Yahweh Shai said, if this were my kingdom, then will my servants fight. So at the end of the day, Yahweh Shai was numbered amongst these particular groups. Okay? It says the gospel doesn't specifically label Barabbas a zealot or a Sicarii. However, based on Mark 15:7, he was imprisoned for a murder during an uprising. It's very possible he was connected to a militant anti-Roman group. That would fit, all right, with what we know about the zealots or the Sicarii, though the Sicarii as a distinct group may have been more prominent slightly later. All right, so he could have just been a zealot. He could have been a part of a zealot group. We don't know. But based upon what we have, it says Barabbas was likely involved in anti-Roman rebellion and possibly associated with militant groups of the Jews like zealots, but the Gospels don't specifically say whether he was a zealot or in the Sicarii. Now, going back here, okay, going back here, when we jump down to verse 27, right, at the crucifixion, right, at the crucifixion, this is Mark 15, right, and 24. I'll read it in NLT. Then the soldiers nailed him to the cross. They divided his clothes and threw dice to decide who would get each piece. Showing you the rolling dice. All right, I remember hearing them. It went back to Egypt, but they did that in Rome as well. It says it was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him, because he's the morning sacrifice as well as the evening sacrifice. It says a sign announced the charge against him. It read, "The King of the Jews." 2 revolutionaries were crucified with him on his right hand and on his left. Okay? And verse 28 says, and the scripture was fulfilled, which said he was numbered with the transgressors. So Yahweh Shai, all right, was numbered right along with actual evildoers, with actual men who were doing, all right, wickedness, man. All right? Basically, Yahweh Shai's church, all right, wasn't given the go-ahead to go and fight against the Romans, but Yahweh Shai was numbered directly with men who were doing that, man. Okay? Thus with us. All right? You're going to have particular Israelites who are going to do some, and they're already doing it. All right? Very uncouth, stupid, okay, rebellious, unruly things, and we're going to be numbered right along with them. Okay? These are the times that we're in. This is a part of the sacrifice. This is a part of us going through the straight gate. These are things that we're going to have to endure. You have to prepare your mind for that. Because when they come up against Israel, they're going to group us all together anyway. A lot of you are trying to, figure out a way to, separate yourselves by trimming the doctrine. No, the angels are going to separate those who are sincere from the fake. The world is ultimately going to deem us all crazy. The world is going to deem us all movers of sedition. The world is going to say that we're terrorists. See? And with the Islamic thing, they got just what they want. Okay? So again, this fulfilled the scripture, as well as things like when you get Luke, the 22nd chapter. Now, a lot of Israelites use this, all right, as a means to push the notion that we could be at camp with guns and, swords and stuff like that. Now, you're not wicked for having a weapon, right? And according to America, that's your right. But linking that to the ministry is not a good idea. Okay? It's not wise. Now, when you get Luke, the 22nd chapter, and we'll go to about 35, all right? Because basically they were getting ready to undergo all kind of persecution, man. All right? As a matter of fact, all right, Yahushua predicts Peter's denial. Now, oh my goodness. The niggas, boy. It says, Luke 22 and I start at 31. Simon, Simon, behold Satan, he's speaking to Peter, Satan have desired to sift you as wheat. And this was a very, very trying time for the followers of Yahushua. This is when Yahushua was getting ready to be grabbed up, right? It says, but I have prayed for thee that thy fail not, and when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. All right? Because Peter would undergo a point where he would deny Yahushua. It was prophesied. Yahushua told him. Verse 33, and he said unto him, Lord, I am ready to go with thee, both to prison and to death. I'm going to die with you, Lord. And he said, I tell thee, Peter, the cock shall not crow this day before thou shalt thrice deny that thou knowest me. So Peter was of the opinion, look, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm down with you. I'm going to ride for you. I'm going to die for you. They ain't going to take you. I'm with you to death. You know what I'm saying? And Yahushua was like, look, you go deny me 3 times. You go deny that you even know me. And then when you go into it, a young woman walked up to Peter like, I know you. You was with Yahushua. And Peter was like, I don't know who you talking, fulfilling what Yahushua just said, because they were catching hell at this time. It says, and he said unto them, when I sent you without, all right, I'll just read it in the NLT. Then Yahushua asked him, when I sent you to go out to preach the good news, and you did not have money, a traveler's bag, or an extra pair of sandals, did you need anything? No, they replied. He says, but now, he said, take your money and a traveler's bag, and if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Okay? It says in verse 37, now why did he say that? Okay? Well, it was ultimately symbolizing the hard times they were getting ready to go through. All right? They were getting ready to be hardcore persecuted. Okay? But as you keep reading, it says, for the time has come for this prophecy about me to be fulfilled. He was counted among the rebels. Yes, everything written about me, all right, by the prophets will come true. Look, Lord, they replied, we have 2 swords among us. He said, that's enough. So Yahushua didn't say all 12 disciples, get a sword. Ultimately, he had them to get the sword because that would be used against Yahushua to say, look, they are movers of sedition, right? But as you read down, his final stance on the sword, okay, in Matthew, the 26th chapter, I believe, 52, okay, because they had those 2 swords, all right, and we know that one of Yahushua's followers used it. I believe Peter used it to cut someone's ear off, all right. Matthew 26 and 51. But one of the men with Yahushua pulled out his sword and struck the high priest's stave, slashing off his ear. Put away your sword, Yahushua told him. Those who use the sword will die by the sword. But again, that would be one of the things that was used against Yahushua to say that he was actually, him and his followers were movers of sedition. Okay, it all fulfilled prophecy. Okay, but let's get the book of Philippians, right? Let's get the book of Philippians, the 2nd chapter, and we'll start at 5. Okay? It says, you must have this same attitude that Yahushua had. Though he was in the form of a God, all right? He was God. He was a power. He did not think of equality, all right, with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges, which were given to him by his Father. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being when he appeared in human form. He humbled himself in obedience to the Most High and died a criminal's death on a cross. You see that? He died a criminal's death. That was a part of his sacrifice, even though he never did any of those things that ultimately they lied, because when you go into it, the wicked scribes and Pharisees and chief priests, they just lied on him. As a matter of fact, I believe it's in Matthew, the 26th chapter. Okay? They just start bearing false witness, man. Right. Matthew 26 and 59. Now the chief priests, the elders, and all the council sought false witness against Yahushua to put him to death. So they start lying on him because really he was innocent. Okay? It says, but found none. Yea, though many false witnesses came, yet found they none. At the last came 2 false witnesses and said, this fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and build it in 3 days. See that? But who was there? Who was there? Verse 59, the chief priest. See that? And the elders. So we're getting ready to, we're going to have to go through this because as you can see, all of these camps are getting ready to blame us. Okay, they're gonna blame us. They're gonna they've already bore all kind of false witness in the sense of calling us grapists and pedos and saying we want, the young girls and, we're counted as the filth of the earth. We're hateful. We make Israel look bad. Okay, that's pretty much the stance. Okay, you saw Bishop Nathaniel sitting in front of that Edomite, all right, agent. And what did he tell him? You got camps out there that teach it's okay to grape. He had no problem doing that. Okay? If I'm sitting in front of a Edomite agent, look, I'm not answering none of your questions about Israel. Go watch the videos. I'm not fit to sit here and help you. Nah, man. You know what we teach. You watch us. Okay? But he wanted to protect Kendrick Lamar, which what has Kendrick Lamar done for the truth? Is he still proclaiming to be Israel? No. Anyway, as you can see, many false witnesses rose up against Yahushua, man. Okay? And they just kept going until ultimately they had him handed over to be crucified. That was a part of Yahushua's sacrifice. Now, we know not all of us are going to die, but, okay, you're going to have some of us detained based upon lie. You're going to have particular Israelites, all right, saying we said this, we doing that, we hateful, all right, we probably went and committed a murder. You're going to have certain Jake, raise up and do things. And an aspect of being a man of the Lord, following in the stead of Yahushua, as the scriptures say, the elect follow the Lamb whithersoever you go. We're going to have to go through that. Okay? But the scriptures say that the elect, okay, in their mouth was found no guile. Let's get the book of Revelation, the 14th chapter. Revelation, the 14th chapter. These were they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. All right. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of the Most High. So ultimately their intent is pure. Right? Let's look up the word guile. Their intent was pure. All right. But in the world, they're going to be blamed for all kind of madness, man. Okay. Some of your family members are going to turn on you. Some of your wives are going to turn on you. Your children are going to turn on you when this persecution comes. Right? These are things we have to prepare ourselves for. As Yahushua told us, dolos, dolos, craft, deceit, or guile. So they don't have any guile in their mouths. Okay? Guile is sly or cunning intelligence. You have many Israelites with guile, but the elect have pure intent, man. They don't have bait. As you can see, bait. All right? Trick, craft, deceit, subtlety. You have many Israelites in that spirit, but the elect have no guile. All right? Let's get the book of Hebrews 12. Okay? Hebrews chapter 12. I start at 1 in the NLT. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses, see, the angels are, all right, they're the true witnesses. They know the true intent of the elect. Okay, they know if it's true, all right, what the people are gonna, because the accuser is gonna come and Israelites are gonna help the accuser, but the angels are the true witnesses. Okay, to the life of faith. We are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith. Let us strip off every weight that slows us down. This is why we get into the videos about examining thyself. All right, cutting off things that you know are offensive and or put you in a doubtful spirit, things that condemn your spirit. It's best to go ahead and take care of those things now, through prayer, through fasting, through anointing. Okay, through trying, man. All right. It says, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily, all right, trips us up. And we all have them. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. See? We do this by keeping our eyes on Yahweh Shai. All right? The champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. It came with shame. See, it came with him being lied on. It came with him being brought up on charges for things he didn't even do. All right? What did David say? Things I knew not? Let's get that real quick. Yep, Psalms 35:11. All right? False witnesses did rise up. They laid to my charge things I knew not, things you ain't even do. And they try to paint us as these crazies. Brothers live very simple lives, and brothers are very loving, man. Brothers are chill, man. But they have the ammo. They're going to pull up certain videos, and they're going to be able to paint this narrative. And certain Israelites that are of the 2/3, okay, what are they going to do? They're going to help them. They're going to help to blame the ministry. Okay, and they think they're going to make a move, but the Lord is going to set up a standard. All right, they rewarded me evil for good to the spoiling of my soul. All right, read the book of Sirach, the 51st chapter, to tap in as well to this energy. You're going to have all kind of people lying on you. Yahweh Shai went through that. Things are going to be brought to your charge that you never did. Now they got AI. They could put your face on your voice, your face to something you never did. These are the times we living in. But you have to know, all right, it ain't supposed to be fair. This is why the need of a higher power should be at the forefront of your mind, because we ain't gonna get no justice from this world. But the Lord is gonna work on our behalf. Okay, the stones of the field, the beasts of the field, everything is gonna work in our favor. It says, we do this, Hebrews 12:2, by keeping our eyes on Yahweh Shai. All right, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith, because the joy awaiting him, okay? He endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. So as you can see, an aspect of Yahweh Shai getting to where he wanted to get, all right, was him being lied on, him being numbered with the transgressors, man. And we've been saying it, but here we see we're in those times. So count it all joy, even though that's easier said than done. Who wants to be lied on, man? Okay, all my life, I was always liked. I was always the liked guy. I was always the funny guy. Then you come into this truth, people lying on you, people hating, slandering you. And, it takes a while to get used to, but it comes a point where you understand. You have to understand that these things are an aspect of being a follower of Yahweh Shai, man. And then after a while, you just start to like it, even though, it makes you mad sometimes. All right, there comes a point where it is what it is, man. All right, like when you read the book of Acts, okay, Peter and them, they were thrown in jail for Yahweh Shai's sake, right? And they rejoiced, man. But you have to understand, through these tribulations, we're only going to be upgraded. The Lord is going to put you through hell. He's going to take you through certain things, but that's only to be upgraded. That's only for miracles to be worked. That's only for angels to show up. Okay? So count it all joy, all right? And prepare to walk through this straight gate. Clear your palate, clear your mind. Do what you got to do. Detox, fast, pray. Get your health in order. Rid yourself of the demons that are slowing you down. Because we getting ready to be upgraded, but upgrade only comes through trials. Shalom.